When it comes to feeding your soul, we need to be aware of what's on Yah's menu for us. Hi, it's Barry Phillips with 10-Minute Torah, day number 2 of Eikev, because. Let's continue now, going to Deuteronomy, chapter number 8. Let's drop down to verse number 7. For Yahweh your Elohim is bringing you into a good land, a land of streams of water, of fountains and springs that flow out of valleys and hills, a land of wheat and barley and vines and fig trees and pomegranates, a land of olive oil and honey, a land in which you eat bread without scarcity, in which you do not lack at all, a land whose stones are iron, and out of whose hills you dig copper, and you shall eat and be satisfied, and shall bless Yahweh your Elohim for the good land which he has given to you. When we read of this menu of wheat, barley, vines, fig trees, pomegranates, olive oil, and honey, obviously we understand this is of the produce of the land. Having been to the land, I can tell you that the produce of the land exceeds in flavor and in color and oftentimes in size compared to that of other lands. It has been said that if you can grow it anywhere in the world, you can grow it in Israel. And I have seen the fields ripe with fruit and produce and tables laden with good food to eat. One thing about it, when you go to Israel, if you've never gone yet, key word there, yet, when you go, you will find you will not leave Israel hungry. It has some incredible food. That being said, let's look at what's being offered to us here. And let's begin with the idea of wheat. Now, I know that currently in our day that what we eat as wheat is not necessarily and probably not the wheat that was being described here in scriptures, that man has tinkered with and modified the grain to where it's not what it's supposed to be. Nevertheless, let's deal with the original idea of wheat, which is known as king's bread. This is the bread of which we make the 2 large hollow loaves at Shavuot, and we wave them with anticipation of our king. We celebrate him and the outpouring of the Torah, the giving of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. It is rich, flavorful, satisfying bread. It speaks of the best in life. It's a bread or a grain that speaks of maturity and fullness. Most often then it is combined with leaven, which brings about very flavorful taste to us, and also as it inflates the bread or causes the bread to rise up, it's life. Yeast is living. It's something that is alive. And it is food that spiritually, it feeds the soul of the spirit of man, that part of us that readily connects with Yah and yearns to hear from him. So spiritually speaking, Yah is saying, I'm bringing you to a place of the connection with me. The bread typifies the idea you're going to have life, you're going to have maturity, you're going to have richness, you're going to have celebration and joy, and you're going to connect with me. But then we come to almost the opposite in barley. Barley is a bit different. Barley is basic grain, often used as cattle feed, but it can be ground and baked into bread that will indeed sustain life. It is known more as poor man's bread and animal fodder, if you will. So remember then the young lad who brought 5 barley loaves and 2 fish to Messiah to feed thousands. It just shows to us that likely he was a young man of poor estate in life. That is, he could not afford wheat, so he ate barley. But barley is also the grain that we reap in the season of Pesach, and from that then we make matzah. Matzah, this unleavened flat bread, very much void and great flavor. It has a little taste, but nothing that you would get excited about. It nonetheless speaks of our redemption and of our deliverance. This reminds us then that we were in a poor estate as slaves, but a high price, nevertheless, the blood of Mashiach Yeshua, typified by the Pesach lamb, was paid for us. So we're talking about that bread then, spiritual bread, that feeds the animal soul in us. Yeah, every one of us in our human nature, we're basic living creatures. We're animalistic. We're mammals, if we will, and we share that status with animals. That being the case, then Yah is saying to us, I will provide your basic needs of food and shelter and raiment. I'm going to be faithful to you. We come to the vine, and from the vine then, of course, we have the grape from which we make wine. Wine is a beverage that, again, it's alive. It's fermented. It has life in it. If you go and buy a soda out of the machine, it's a bunch of chemicals and water and other stuff. Not a lot of life in that, but a glass of wine, there's life in the wine. The rabbis have said that when wine goes in, that which is concealed comes out. So we have to be careful about how much wine we ingest. But it brings about a sense of life and joy. It gladdens the eyes. It puts a smile on the face. And spiritually speaking, it's about increasing our level of knowledge and understanding, making things more keen and radiant, and bringing revelation to us, opening up our spirit to a certain degree that we might receive of Him. Wine is also indicative of the joy of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit. Fig trees are something very interesting here. Fig trees represent not Israel, but the Sanhedrin court. A fig is that which represents the Sadiq, a righteous man. Figs are possibly the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, so say the sages. That's interesting because out of the tree that they ate from, perhaps they found leaves to cover themselves. A fig leaf is a large leaf. But figs or fig trees, or the Sadiqs of the fig tree, are not always righteous people. Remember, Yeshua cursed the fig tree. Interesting. Pomegranates. This is the fruit where you eat the seeds. First time Laura and I had a pomegranate, we peeled the outer layer off and gutted the seeds and cut a slice of what remained. We were disappointed in the pomegranate. Imagine our laughter when we found out we actually threw away the part that you were supposed to eat. But each seed is in its own little sack, yet it's a part of the whole, which speaks then of the fruits of the Holy Spirit. Remember, around the border and the hem of the high priest, there were bells and then pomegranates, woven pomegranates, speaking of the gifts of the Spirit, the fruits of the Spirit, each one distinct, yet they all operate together. And so we're talking about that which is of the heart and the character of Messiah Yeshua. The seeds are the deeds of His character. The olive tree, of course, is that from which we receive olive oil. And to get that, you have to press and be bruised and ultimately crushed. And He speaks of our struggle and our sense of needing to survive. In order to endure, we have to persevere. And we need to grow, learning to worship Him even in hard times and when it's hurting. And finally, we have honey. Honey of the beehive is one thing, but in Israel, you also have more prominently honey from the date palm. And there's a species of the date palm, it says it takes 70 years in order to get some fruit. You have to persevere again. After the struggle, After the endurance, there is sweetness. Let our soul be satisfied with the good things of Yah and grow as we are feeding on Him. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, shalom.